I want every one of you that is listening to me to understand this representation of the 12 apostles inside of you. It is not something that is heavy. It is not something that is very, very complex to understand. It is very simple when you understand what you call physical senses. Each of you inside of this world has something you call physical sense. And this physical sense, they are basically categorized or grouped into 5 specific forms. So when you look at this particular diagram, okay, you have a sense of hearing that allows your ears to pick up subtle frequencies that is being transmitted by your genetic material, by the spirit that flows, you breathing in and breathing out, you having devil and having angel, you having good and having evil, you having positive and having negative. This particular sequencing energy is what you call the spirit. Okay? The spirit is the essence of creation itself. The spirit is the essence of life itself. So this particular spirit is categorized, or the way in which it sends information to the entirety of your chakras, is particularly grouped into 5 specific forms. You have a sense of hearing that is connected to your ear. You have a sense of smell that is connecting you to your nose. You have a sense of taste that is connecting you to your tongue. You have a sense of touch that is connecting you to your general body, and you have a sense of sight that allows you to interpret information via a way of seeing. You understand? So this particular physical 5 senses of yours is an exact depiction when it comes to you, the representation of Christ consciousness, and then the 12 apostles that surrounds him. Because I made it very clear the apostles are taking information from Christ. Yeshua is the physical representation of what the Christ consciousness is. The Christ consciousness is the cube that exists inside of you. The particular cube that is awakening, or that is waiting for awakening, what you call the pineal gland, are fragments, are crystals. These particular crystals, you can see when it comes to your DNA, all of them are having different color. All of them are having different representation. So this particular different representation is what is connecting you to all the 12, is what is connecting you to the star systems, is what is connecting you to the entire ocean. Okay? That is what is connecting you to the entire ocean. So when you learn to allow more light, into this particular DNA of yours by a way of the spirit, then this particular DNA begins to awaken. You understand? They begin to enhance. The more light passes through them, the bigger that they become. So when it comes to the root chakra, you are going to begin to understand more of this particular reality, which represents red when it comes to your DNA. When it comes to the blue one, then you begin to get a deeper understanding of what the creation is about from the beginning of sound itself. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, so basically every single form of these particular centers of yourself that represents the pineal gland is always in constant communication with your DNA. How this particular DNA pick the information and then to interpret it into what you call a physical sense depends entirely on your amount of light, the amount of light that you allow into the body. You understand? Okay, so when it comes to the spirit, I made it very clear. The entire ocean, okay, the way in which creation is an organized chaos. Creation is an organized chaos. Creation is something that happens one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. Just like the vibrational pattern that exists in this entire universe. This is how everything is. This is where you get man. This is where you get woman. This is where you get waves. This is where you get frequencies. This is where you get vibrations. This is where you get alignments. This is everything. Okay? I told the beginning frequency is from one particular timeline that started dividing itself into countless timelines. This is what I'm talking about. So as you, the entirety of what the ocean is, you started as spirit. Okay? So I'm going to brush through the elements very easily, and then you understand. Creation doesn't happen to them telling you that you have to fast through earth and then you jump all the way to fire. Okay? I'm going to show them the depiction of you just as the representation of your 5 fingers, your 5 foot. Okay? It's the same thing. You are the reflection of the heavens. The heavens is the crown. The heavens is the entire ocean. And it's the heavens that created the earth. Your earth is your physical body. So the whatever that exists in the heavens is existing on the earth. So if you understand the interpretation of the earth on your physical body, then you begin to get a more deeper understanding of what the heavens is about. When you allow the light to pass through the heavens easily to get to the body, then you can receive more information about what the entire ocean is and how to actually go about connecting it to what you call physical reality. You understand what I'm saying? Okay? So if the first beginning form of yourself is the spirit, The spirit is the highest form. You started as spirit. Everything is spirit. And then you condense into the etheric essence. You condense into the etheric essence. 9 etheric, 6 etheric. I made this very clear. You have ethnic groups. You have ethnicities. You have earths. This particular ether is the representation of the creation of a particular form that doesn't have a shape. Do you understand? The ether is something that you can pick and then to manipulate into any other form. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the ether here represents the essence of creation from the spirit, the very evidence that the spirit exists. So when you started from ether, you condensed down into fire. Okay? Fire is the light system. Fire is the extension of your neurons, like I was explaining, your meridian lines, your nervous system. From the beginning of creation, you started as one particular single movement of a particular sperm cell. So this particular sperm cell is carrying frequencies, is a representation of different levels of vibrations that are called your chakras. Do you understand? So from these particular extensions of your nervous system, that is the creation of fire. Electricity, from the crown of your head all the way to the roots of your feet, is made up of electric signals, electrical notes that is being transmitted. So you condense down to fire. And when you look at fire, the representation of your own being, I made it very clear. The spirit here represents your thumb. Okay? Your thumb, the big finger that you have, represents your thumb. And then the ether energy represents your index finger. Every one of you has an index finger. It represents your index finger. And from the index finger, you move all the way to the fire element, which is your middle finger. Okay? Your middle finger is the element of fire. So that is how creation is. It doesn't jump. It moves steps and steps and steps until the very last point of itself. So when you move from the particular middle finger, you went to the ring finger, which is water. Okay? After fire, you condense down into water. After the ejaculation, after you've had sex and you are enjoying this particular resonance that is happening between the positive part of you, which is the divine feminine, and the negative part of you, which is divine masculine, all these particular two energies are coming to create what is in the middle. Okay, all these particular two energies is creating the Christ consciousness in the middle. The left part of you, the right part of you is creating the Christ consciousness in the middle. So this particular extraction of energy all the way from your crown through your nervous system is pulling all spirit, okay, and condensing it into ether, turning it into fire, which is the emotions that you usually feel, and then it is turned into water by your testes and then fired into the divine feminine, and that is when you begin to create your physical body as earth. That is the little finger. Okay? That is your little finger. So when you look at the elements, when you look at how they are represented inside of you, they are all represented in accordance, because the earth element is the little finger. You are only existing at the little part of understanding what the entire cosmos is about, what the entire ocean is about. So earth is the smallest thing. Earth is the prison cell. Earth is the one thing that is keeping you from exploring the entire ocean. Because if you don't allow more light into the small finger, there is no way that you can grow to become the water, to become the middle finger, and then to turn to index, and then become the spirit itself. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what you call these particular physical 5 senses, they are the exact relation to these particular senses of yourself. And it's the same thing when it comes to the apostles' representation. Okay? So I made it very clear. When it comes to the first apostle, that is the olfactory. The olfactory is the apostle Peter. And Peter is the representation of the sense of smell. Okay? The sense of smell. Every single life story about Peter is about interpreting the word that comes from the spirit through by way of senses. Impulsiveness, you receive impulses, which are the electrical node that is being transmitted through your nervous system to every single activity inside of your body, to allow you to be able to move, to contract, to feel happy, to feel sad. That is what the DNA is about, the left and then the right part of you. That is the representation of Peter. And then we move all the way to the second apostle, which is the optic nerve, a representation of sight. The sight is this one, okay, which is Andrew. I made it very clear the representation of who Andrew is. Andrew represents the sight, you being able to go inside and then to connect with the spirit essence itself in order to reveal the deepest hidden aspect part of yourself that you have no realization or understanding of. Because if you are able to return back to sight, then you have connected to the middle part of yourself, because it is through the middle part of yourself that your energy centers grow. Do you understand? When you are able to place yourself back into the middle as Andrew, then every form of communication that is coming from the spirit essence itself, it is going to be retrieving and passing through your DNA cells, your DNA codings, and this particular DNA codings is going to pick up the information through the emotional feeling of the heart, which is the middle, and then reality is interpreted to you through your 5 physical senses. So if you are asking how fast this actually works, it works faster than the speed of everything. Because if you understand that this particular sun that exists outside there, in the sun, the amount of energy or the level of speed that it takes before it reaches this particular earth is in few seconds. So the way in which the spirit communicates the information to the entire ocean is in a split second. Okay? It's in a split second. So this particular split second, depending on the level that the physical body is, will tell you how you are going to be receiving this particular speed. Whether it is going to be too fast for you to understand, whether it is going to be slow for you to understand, whether it is going to be made slow for you to understand, it depends entirely on you. The level of your vibration will tell you the level that you are able to interpret the sense of smell, the sense of sight, and then the sense of hearing, or every physical aspect part of your representation. Do you understand? I made it very clear. Spirit is the fastest. Okay? The spirit is the fastest movement of energy before you condense down to water, which is mid-movement, not fast, not slow, before you go to the last part of you, which is the slow movement. Body, mind, and then soul. This is how they perceive the information about your physical self. This is how your body receives the whole information from the spirit itself. Do you understand this simple thing? Okay? So let's continue. Let's go to the third apostle. I've basically summarized it into my book. Okay, I basically summarized all the 12 apostles as the cranial nerves into my book. So I'm going to be reading from my book, and then we are going to be explaining it gradually for you to get the deepest understanding of what this particular 12 representation of yourself is. So that you understand God doesn't exist outside there, He exists on the inside. The only way to go through is to go inside. Okay, the only way out is inside. Do you understand what I'm saying? So let's go and then we'll pick the next apostle. The next apostle, which is the third apostle, is James. Okay? The next apostle is the apostle James. That is the third apostle. And when it comes to representation of your cranial nerve, that is the oculomotor nerve. I always make it very clear that when it comes to the representation, okay, of these particular names of your nervous system, learn to look beyond the name. Because these particular people, they'll pronounce words or they'll use words that when you try to pronounce, you end up biting your tongue. Because somebody that exists in the northern part of South Africa or in somewhere East Legon or somewhere Nigeria will not understand this particular word rather than putting my thought into it. It is so difficult to pronounce. Instead of them explaining very simply for them, they will put gigantic word onto that particular thing to make it even more confusing and more boring, because you people, you don't like to read things, and the more you don't like to read, that is how easily that they hide things from you. Okay, so always learn to look beyond the name and look at the features. The features is where the honey is. Okay, all the truth about that particular thing always exists in the features of it. Like calling me my name. When you call me work seeker is one particular name. But when you are going into work seeker, what is work seeker? And that is when you begin to get that I have 12 different parts of myself, and each of them is uniquely related to my own self. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you always have to look way past the name and then go into the features. That is how deeply that you get the understanding of everything. So the next particular cranial nerve, okay, is the oculomotor nerve. And the oculomotor nerve here is responsible for eye movement and pupil function. Okay, move signals from brain to muscle in the eye. So the function of this particular oculomotor nerve is the transmission of electric signals, okay, all the way from the pupil, okay, from the brain to the muscle of the eye. Okay, so every form of information comes as a way of your mind being interpreted to you. I made it very clear. Just as the spirit exists on top here, this is the absolute. And from the absolute came the extensions of what you call the nervous system. So this particular nervous system is responsible for carrying every information and then transmuting it to what you call the physical senses. So all the physical senses, they are all mapped into the middle. All of them are holding the middle responsible. All of them are receiving information from God. God is the one thing that is transmitting information to all the rest of humanity. Be it an ant, be it a monkey, be it a dog, be it a cow, be it a sheep. Every single one inside of this universe is receiving information from the absolute itself. So this particular absolute is the one thing that is sending the information. When it comes to the oculomotor nerve, it is the responsibility of that particular part of yourself to receive information that allows proper movement of your eye. Do you understand? The part of your eye that allows you to regulate the movement function when it comes to either moving it from here to here, no, that is the representation of James. James is the sense of sight. Okay? James is the sense of sight. Same thing as Andrew. Because I made it very clear. You have two different kinds of functions that is related inside of your own self. You have an electro, you have a magnetic. You have positive, you have negative. Okay? And I made it very clear, when it comes to your entire being, your mouth can be used for breathing. I can close my nose and use my mouth to provide air for my lungs, but that is not the function of the mouth. Do you understand? The function of the mouth is not to provide air for the lungs, is to provide food, is to masticate food, digest food for the stomach. But the functions, when it comes to their relations, they are always linked, just like your nervous system. You know? One branch extends to another, another branch extends to another, and another branch extends to another. So they have sole responsibilities. One can have one particular function that is divided into various forms of functioning. Okay? Just like the absolute. It takes information from one particular source and then it distributes it according to different levels of vibration. So your nose is responsible for providing air for your entire being, but the responsibility of the mouth is to provide food. So the nose can be used for breathing. The nose can also be used to smell other things, but differently from breathing. Okay? The nose is responsible for taking the etheric essence and then converting it into electric signals and then condensing it to the 5 physical senses according to the level of how you understand it, so that you will be able to interpret the information as this is smelling sweet or this is smelling bad. It can do that all in a level of a particular split second. You understand? Okay? So when it comes to this particular nerve, okay, the nerve that works with you being able to control your sense of sight, is talking about sight. It's the same thing as Andrew. It's connected to Andrew, just like your mouth and your nose. One can provide one function for the other. Okay, if you've ever been to a hospital before, when someone is devoid or someone cannot masticate their own food, or they've gone through a particular surgery that they are not able to ingest solid food, they usually pass the food through their nostrils all the way to their mouth, their stomach, and then they feed them the food indirectly. Do you understand? That is not the function of the nose, but in this particular context, it is able to provide food for the body. Do you understand what I'm saying? So these particular 12 apostles, they are all linked to the 5 physical senses of your own self. One can perform only one, or one can perform more than 5 or 3 or 2 or 1 or more. Do you understand? They can all keep functioning like that, differently from one another, but they are all still connected to one particular absolute. That is what the spirit is. Okay? So that is what the oculomotor is. And when you come to the Bible, okay? When you come to the good book, before it was turned into what it is, there are 2 types of Jameses inside of the Bible. There are 2 types of James. We have James the Great and we have James the Lesser. There are 2 types of James inside of the Bible. And I made it very clear. When it comes to your sense of sight, you being able to see, there are 2 representations. You have 2 eyes. There's one eye on the left and then there's one eye on the right. Okay? So what they are talking about is the representation of these particular 2 kinds of James. There are 2 different kinds of eyes that you have. You have the left eye and you have the right eye. You have James on the left and you have James on the right. Those are the 2 forms of Jameses. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay? So the first James is the blood related to Jesus. Okay? When you are talking about this particular James, the greater James, The greater James is the one that is related to Yeshua. Okay? The greater James is the one that is linked to Yeshua. And I made it very clear that among the 12 apostles, Yeshua is in the middle here. Okay, this is where he is. So Yeshua is the one that is in the middle. Yeshua is the one that is connected to these particular centers of your own self, all 12. So when they are telling you that this greater James is connected to Yeshua, all that they are trying to tell you is that he is closer to Christ. Okay? James was there for the accounts of the life of Christ. So when it comes to the representation of it, what they are always trying to say is that when Christ ascended, when he ascended through the chakras, and then got to the divine absolute itself, when he returned to the absolute itself, he sat in the right hand of God. So they are always using the depiction of your left eye as different and the depiction of your right eye as different. That is why you can see all these Masonic people or these Illuminati self-contracted or the contract people that have signed a particular contract of silence are usually covering either one eye or opening one eye or making a particular hand gesture. This is usually a particular kind of information that they are trying to tell you. Okay? It is usually this particular kind of information. You have two eyes to look, but you need one eye to see. So they are all, these particular two Jameses are connected to Christ, are connected to the middle, depending on how their functions are, varies very differently from each other. That is what it is trying to tell you. Okay? The other James apostle is the preacher of the gospel, Jesus Christ. Okay? He raised Jairus' daughter from the dead. Okay? He raised Jairus' daughter from the dead. The other James, James the lesser. Okay? We have greater James and then we have lesser James. Lesser James was able to raise Jairus' daughter from the dead. And I made it very clear. When they are talking about people dying, okay, when they are talking about the death of people, 90% of the time, it isn't just the representation of the physical self, because that is how you people usually interpret things. Okay, you interpret things by way of the outside, but every healing, every form of resurrection comes from the inside. So when they are talking about death, I told you people, every one of you inside of this world, you are a living corpse. Okay, you are a dead man walking. You are born blind. And when you are born blind, you are born dead. You only follow instructions that are laid before you. That is a strict way or a direct way of living life. You are never being able to explore. There is no creativity. There is no spark. There is no growth of what the soul is. So you are a walking corpse. You are just coming to experience reality, die, and then reincarnate to come and repeat the same thing over and over again. So to save somebody from death simply means that you've given the person the ability to be alive, to be aware. Okay, you've given the person the ability to be aware, to be alive, because once you awaken, that is what awakening is about. Once you awaken, you begin to see, and once you begin to see, that is your first time of being alive. You begin to see that you are not just existing as one particular sense, but you are existing as an entire ocean. Okay, there's an entire ocean of you waiting for exploration. You understand this simple thing? Okay, so let's go. The two types of James, okay, are the representation to represent you as being the Christ in the middle and transmitting the energy between the left eye and then the right eye. Okay, so the best way to stop someone who has already seen is by beheading. So I summarize it very simply: the death of this particular James. Okay, when you research about how James died, they told that his head was cut off. Because once you begin to see the truth, once you begin to realize and understand the deepest context of what the spirit is, your connection to Yeshua, you can no longer exist inside of this world. They will no longer allow you, so they will kill you. Okay? You have just awakened to the system. You have just awakened to the manipulation. You've just awoken to the destruction and then the destruction of this particular world. Okay? I use two distractions. One is with the I and one is with the E. It's like that. Okay, you are either distracted, because if you are distracted, you cause distraction. You no longer have the sight to see. But once you begin to awaken James, you have the fullest context of what it means to be dead and what it means to be alive. And these people, back in the day, they would not allow you to spread the truth of what you've known about your connection to Yeshua. So they'll off you immediately. Do you understand this simple context about James? So go and do your simple research. If you understand and you have questions, you can come and leave it in the comment section. And then when I come back, I'll gather all your questions if need be, and then I'll make videos on it and then to explain further. Okay? I don't have the money to buy the books in order to read into their life story. So those of you that can buy the books, buy it, read it. If you don't understand something, you bring it back. The explanation will also allow others to enlighten themselves. Okay? The next cranial nerve is the nerve you call the trochlear. Okay, the trochlear nerve is the next motor nerve that is connecting you to what the middle part of yourself is, or to what the consciousness of Yeshua or Christ consciousness is. Okay, so the next thing we are looking at is the trochlear. Okay, so the representation of the trochlear, its function is responsible for controlling the superior oblique muscle of the eye, looking down and looking inwards. Okay, so let's write this thing down. The functions of it is to look down and then to look inwards. Okay, these are two different separations of the representation of the function when it comes to the trochlear, or the representation of John inside of the Bible. Okay, this is John. So when it comes to what they are trying to tell you the trochlear is, it is used to controlling, or its responsibility is controlling the superior oblique muscle of the eye. And I made it very clear that every form of movement, okay, be it that it is like this or like this, you are folding and you are closing, you are talking about contraction. You are talking about contraction and you are talking about relaxation. Okay, these are the two functions of your muscles. Every single one of you inside of this world, you have a way to contract your muscle. You do like this, your muscle will contract. Without the presence of your muscles, you can't contract your hand like this. Without the presence of your muscles, your hand will not relax like this. That is why paralysis, when you have paralysis like myself, you are not able to move your fingers freely the way you want. Because once they contract, that simply means that your nervous system has gotten a particular issue. The electric signals that is being transmitted to tell it to relax, to tell it to contract, isn't working at 100%. It isn't working at a speed that allows you to control it virtually. You understand? Everything is electric signals. So when it comes to the representation of what your trochlear is, it represents, or its function is controlling the superior muscle that allows your eye to look down. You being able to turn your eyeball downwards, or you even able to turn your eyeball inwards. Okay? When they are talking about downwards representation of the eye, they are talking about you being able to look down. Not just physically like this, but being able to look and then to see beyond the physical reality of what you are. Start from the bottom. Because if you read on the John story, or who Apostle John is the revelator. Okay? Apostle John is the revelator of truth, the one that sees the truth. Because if you are looking downwards, you are beginning to see things of the entire reality of what it is. You are beginning to look at things from the physical point of it. And then when you look inwards, then that is when everything is revealed. So I made it very clear. When it comes to what knowledge is, knowledge already exists inside of this world. Everything that exists is knowledge. The book, the pen, the house, the trees, the TV, the decks, the globe, the lights, every single thing that exists inside of this world is knowledge. Okay? The knowledge is already there. But when it comes to the awareness, the knowledge here is what represents the downward looking. You'll be able to look down. That is what knowledge is. Everything is knowledge. But you being able to look inwards, that is when the knowledge becomes wisdom. Okay? When you are able to look inward, you begin to see truly what the representation of that particular thing is. Okay? So when it comes to the Apostle John, when it comes to your trochlear, it's also talking about your connection to your sense of sight. Okay, it is also talking about your connection to your sense of sight. You learning not to see just one particular way of looking at things like James, but learning to look inwards into the middle to see what the entire information is about. That's the representation of who John is. John served as an important witness to the Savior and the Revelator, Just like I said, John represents the part of yourself that reveals the information about the story of who Yeshua is. John is connected to Yeshua. Yeshua is connected to John. So whatever information that Yeshua wants to give it to John, depending on the level of light that exists in John, will tell you how much John is able to look inwards. Okay, John is able to look inward in order to receive the information from Yeshua himself. Okay, that is the representation of John inside of the good book. Okay, this is the function of John. This is what it means to look inward. This is what it means to seek within. John is about looking inward. Looking inward, you begin to get the revelations to life itself.